Uh-huh.
Now, this space is so, I think space is probably the key to practically everything in physics.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. That's exactly where I'm coming from. I'm saying that the space is what's producing the phenomenon that we call matter. Basically, when we look at particles, we're looking at the little jiggling of the space, a little oscillation of the space, and because it produces an energetic effect, we say, oh, there's something over here. But then when we look carefully at that thing, we find that it's mostly made out of space. You're absolutely right. I mean, the atom is 99.99999% space. You don't expect that when you look at the material world. You think, oh my God, it's very dense. When you touch the table, but actually, it's mostly space, and you can find very dynamic energy structures inside that space. It's not dead space. It's not empty space. It's very energetic. And when you try to calculate how energetic it is, it's incredible. The density of the energy available in the space is remarkable. And I think it's really something we need to explore because I don't believe that we're in a universe that's running down, that's low in energy, that put us on this planet that with no means to achieve higher levels of energy and so on, either than pumping oil out of the ground and so on. So I think that is the wave of the future.
Okay, very good. Couple more calls to go. Kennedy in Taos, New Mexico, first-time caller. Hi, Kennedy.
Hi, George. Hi, Nassim.
Hi.
I'm proud to say that I am a delegate of the Resonance Project. It is an amazing, amazing program. Nassim, I'd like to know briefly, and I'll take my answer off the air, what you think of the theory of fractal time and applying the phi ratio and the fractal nature of the universe to a theory of time.
Yes, very good. Fractal, you see, in the view that I'm bringing forward, time is a function of the frame dragging of space. And so let me explain that a little bit. This vacuum energy, this vacuum structure, you could think of it as a little bit like if you were stirring a pot of molasses and, it would drag behind a little bit where you're stirring. That's called frame dragging, and it actually is predicted by Einstein field equations, and it's been attempted to be measured. It was measured in various ways, and it's somewhat confirmed. And so what I'm saying is that I absolutely agree. I think that time is directly related to this fractal division of the space, this fractal scaling of the space. So, for instance, time for a galaxy size is completely different than time for a human being on the surface of a planet, or time for an atom is different, again, because each scales of the fractal defines a different frame of reference for the time structure.
Okay, we've got Jen in Cincinnati, Ohio. Now it's your turn. Hi, Jen.
Yes, hello. Nassim had mentioned earlier about sacred geometry.
Yes.
And I was wondering what he thought about the possibility of Merkaba being like a hyperdimensional aspect of spirit.
Oh, that's a good question. I think that many ancient texts talked about the fundamental geometry of space as sacred geometry because they thought this is the fundamental geometry of creation, so they thought of it as sacred. And, and because these ancient civilizations were not necessarily very technical, they were not very advanced, and maybe because they got the information from very advanced beings that they were in contact with, they may not have completely understood it, and so most of the information is always interpreted in very esoteric, philosophical interpretation. I think it has to do much more with the physics of creation itself. And and if it's correct, if these geometries, when they're decoded, give the formula, the mathematics for the foundation of our existence, then for sure it should apply to the structure of our consciousness, the structure of the information that makes us who we are, and if you wanted to call it the soul, and so it'd be the geometry of our soul in the structure of the vacuum. Absolutely.
Okay, next up we have a San Diego caller west of the Rockies. It's Tom. Hey, Tom, go ahead.
Oh, hi, George. Nassim and George both, you're invited to our Sun God Festival down here. It's a mix of music and science students.
When is that?
San Diego. It's end of March.
Okay.
My question is this. We often hear and learn on Coast to Coast about the string theory, about membranes, about dark matter and dark energy, and those are the terms that most of us have learned about this subject. Could you compare and contrast your theories to those standard theories? Last Friday,
Michio
Kaku said that this is the only thing left for physicists to hang on to. It's the number of dimensions and the types of strings. There's nothing else to be discussed any longer.
Yes. Well, this I think is a typical thing that occurs in physics. And by the way, thank you for the invitation. I'd love to go to the Sun God Festival if I get a chance. But I think that in physics and in science in general, we go from interpretation to very complex description of what we're trying to achieve in our understanding, and then eventually somebody comes along, or a group of individuals or so on, and and then a simple view emerges, and I just have that sense when you look at the complexity of string theory and many difficulties that are involving dark matter and dark energy. I mean, dark matter and dark energy is a little bit like the strong force, It's like, we're just going to invent a kind of matter that doesn't radiate, that's just in the right percentage, in exactly the right place to make the equation work, but we're not going to say where it came from, how it got there, and so on. And so, I don't necessarily agree with that approach to physics. I believe that if we run into a problem, for instance, missing some 96% of the mass of the universe, most likely is because we made an error in our interpretation somewhere, an error in our equation somewhere. And if we revise our previous approach, I think we can repair that. And part of it is to realize that atoms are mini black holes.
Okay, let's go to one more final caller, Jess in Lancaster, California. Go ahead, Jess, real quickly.
Hey, how you doing? It's actually Jeff. Anyways, I don't know if it's a question or a thought. Is space goes on forever, right? Well, also, and let's say an atom is the smallest thing there is, and you cut an atom in half, and you can always keep going and going and going, smaller, smaller, smaller. So I've always wanted to say that as much as space can go on forever, so can small. You can never not have something. So I don't know, yeah.
Very good.
Go ahead, Nassim.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying is actually when you start cutting the atom in pieces, eventually you start realizing that what you're cutting in piece that you think is some kind of material world is actually the space that you're dividing. And, that kind of twists your view of the universe around. All of a sudden, the space is what produces the atomic structure, not the atomic structure defining the space.
I would have liked for you to have been our physics teacher when we were kids, Nassim, except you're younger than we were.
Well, hopefully, eventually, this will be the physics that are taught.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nassim Haramein.